Stuart, in PR land, we always talk about staying on message, and we kind of mean words, we kind of ignore the visual side, but there is such a thing as visual drift, and it can also undermine a brand credibility, reputation. Talk to us about visual drift.
It's pretty astute of you to notice that. And what I see coming from what we do in terms of production is I see it over and over and over with companies in that they do, say, an initial branding campaign and they have a look and a feel, and we stick to that campaign. And then as the campaign ages, it just kind of tends to go off brand because maybe the, offshore division does another look, and everybody's being asked to post content with the look and feel, but it drifts over time. And we've we've seen that, like I've been a part of it, even like when I'm on the initial launch of a new branding look. And then you kind of see it over the years. Well, we got a call from the aesthetics department over there in Canada, and they want to change it up a bit. And honestly, I think it's a very honest mistake, because it's not even a mistake. It's an honest, I guess, an honest piece of the trajectory, because today's day and age, we are pushing so much content that it's really hard for brands to really keep it on target with all the different people they're requiring to create this content.
So does this mean like I can't change colors? I can't put my logo, if I usually have it in green and I try it out in blue or I try it out in red, I can't do different colors?
This is what I think. I think when you get sick of your logo, people are just starting to recognize it. You see stuff every day, right? But your clients don't see it every day. And think about sticky brands. Think about brands that you recognize, and you recognize their line, their taglines. Think of Nike, just do it. I mean, how long did that take? And actually, since we first talked, I thought about it a lot and thought about some of the brands out there that have really stuck on brand. And you think it seems to be the insurance companies are really good with that. You think of Flow, you think of Chaos, that guy, Mr. Chaos. You think of
the Gecko. I think of the
Gecko.
Gecko. Yeah.
The Gecko's great. And also the Emu, again, I can't, but you remember them. And they're not doing all these micro campaigns. It's like we have one look, one feel, everything has the Gecko on it, period. And what did we all remember the Gecko, and I'm sure you just type into your search bar, what brand is the Gecko? And it'll pop up.
I've met the Gecko. It was an honor.
There you go. Cool.
Moving on from the Gecko. Now, Stuart, everyone now has these incredible tools that they can use and create, these, beautifully designed social media assets, videos, etc. And these apps are just becoming increasingly user friendly as well. So you kind of don't need that level of, going to, study visual communication at degree level and all of that to do, what you can now do as a layperson with these apps. So where does the advantage actually lie now for, visual communicators, experts? How do you differentiate yourself in this day and age when, we've all got Canva and all of these other tools?
Sure. Well, I do think for graphic designers, it's a huge challenge. And like filmmakers as well, the middle ground is kind of eroding because the tools are available to everybody. So if you're just a middle of the road graphic designer, you should probably be looking for a new job, because you really have to be on the A level, I think, in any of what we do today, because everything's been so democratized. But I do think the tools are amazing, like the Canvas of the world. I'm sure Adobe is shaking in their boots because they're rolling it out and anyone can create. You don't need to understand how Illustrator works or something like that. But maybe, when we're talking about visual drift, if you think about a brand, say you're a big Fortune 500 company that has offices all over the world, maybe they're design team, I mean, maybe it's their responsibility to send out, the graphic standards manual, because I think people have forgotten about that, but send it out in a way that anyone can use it. So maybe it's a Canva template or, so it's like, whatever you do, we love the content you're doing, but please brand it accordingly. And I think that might go a long way, actually.
I have visual drift every night when I'm watching the hockey game on TV. I sit on my phone and I'm scrolling and it's a scrolling world, right? And
It is.
and the idea of the visuals, I have this saying, you have 0.3 seconds to earn 3 seconds, to earn 30 seconds, to earn 3 minutes, blah, blah, blah. That 0.3 seconds is something connected to your visual, right? So give me a checklist, or itemize for me, how do I earn that 0.3 seconds, and what's the biggest mistake? What's the biggest fail that you see?
Wow, that's a really good one, because we used to do 60-second commercials, then we're doing 30s, and then they want a 30 with a 15, and now they're 6s, and like YouTube Shorts, and the one thing that the client, that the research has showed, that you need your logo up there in the first 3 seconds for them to even cognitively understand who the spot's for. 6 seconds is so quick, and it used to be you only put it at the end. So somehow you need to create compelling visuals that incorporate your story and your brand quickly. And it's real. I mean, it's easy for me to say. I'm the first guy to say it's pretty difficult to maintain that. But I do feel like we need to tell stories to suck people in quicker.
I like that. Stuart, most people listening are PR people. PR people tend to be copy people, words people. And nowadays we have to really embrace the visual side, because so much of content is visual, it's not only just image, but video led. What advice would you give to PR people like ourselves who just think in terms of the power of the word, and we need to broaden our horizons to understand the power of the visual? Like what advice would you give us to embrace this world and do well in this world?
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting that you bring that up, because, being a visual guy, I think sometimes the words are the things that suck people in versus the visuals. And if you think about 0.3 seconds, so if just a word on the screen is not going to engage them, so somehow you need to incorporate the visual with the word. And maybe, just thinking where I'm sitting right now, maybe the visual needs to be an iconic visual that you create for your brand, that everything starts on that static visual and then it starts moving into live action. So if you think about, and if this sticks, you're going to have to credit me with it. So if you have a static visual with whatever words you're trying to get across, and today with post-production, and that could move into a story, whether it's you're putting it up there for 6 seconds, 15 seconds, or 30 seconds, or a color, or, some kind of graphic that's under the words. We all know that when you're scrolling, say, back to what you're saying, Doug, you're scrolling on Instagram, we all know the closed caption thing goes a long way, because a lot of people watch without the sound, especially if you're watching a TV show or,
80%.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the words are becoming more important, and because they need to pop up there, so it kind of sucks people in, because even if the audio is not on, it's like you read that first line, it's like, oh, I want to listen to that.
One of our editors mentioned to me that there was some study, I've never seen the study, but if the closed captioning comes up too fast to read, we've all experienced that, it keeps people longer. You would think logically.
No way.
Yeah, you would think logically it would push people away. Like, I can't follow this, but it
Right.
doesn't. They watch it again, like they're what was that saying? So they watch it again and again and again. It's
Interesting.
Human brain.
That's kind of interesting. And for Zana, like what we were talking about with PR, though, like there's a lot of different verticals in PR, right? There's just publicity. There's crisis. You guys deal with a lot of.
Yeah, it's a big umbrella term. I mean, it's, you know, some could even argue, you know, the visual communication sits within, because, you know, some people perceive PR as the strategic management of information that flows between an organization and its publics, and it doesn't specifically say, you know, words. You know, communication is obviously both word and visual, but it's, you know, it's something that we have always historically not been so great at, and something that we're kind of forced to be better at, because so much of content is now video and image led. And why do you think that is? Do you think because people's brains, it's just easier for them to just decipher images and video than it is to read chunks of text? And we've got so much information flowing that our brain just can't take text as much, you know? I mean, I used to read books all the time. I don't anymore.
You and me both.
I'm on YouTube. Yeah.
You and me both. So, okay, so what you're saying is really interesting, because it used to be a still photograph would capture people. Then it was like, no, it has to be moving to really engage them. And it's something in, you know, in your neuroscience that I think is just human nature. And maybe, you know, PR being the messaging, maybe PR, regardless of the messaging you're pushing out there, maybe it needs to incorporate some of the branding for the company you're working with. You know, because I know a lot of PR agencies, like, you have a lot of different clients. And if everything you're sending out there looks the same based on your PR, you know, your company's look, I mean, maybe for each respective client, it needs to have a different look, whether that's fonts, colors, you know, visuals underneath it, because in essence, you are part of the marketing. You know, you're speaking on behalf of the company. So it does become important there, right?
One of the biggest contributors to visual drift has to be AI, because let's say I'm creating thumbnails for a YouTube video. I go into Nano Banana, I give it some instruction, you know, include a face that goes, oh, you know, that shocked look that you've got. Okay, Nano Banana does it, and unless I instruct it, do it in 368 7B4 colors, I don't even know if it would understand that. But that's got to create visual drift right there, because AI does kind of what AI does, and it's half crazy.
Yeah, but I don't know, Doug, if that'll create visual drift. I think what's happening is our attention spans. I think it's the humans driving the drift a bit, because our attention spans are so short. And I think even within an organization, you know, the creators' attention spans are short. And I think that's how the messaging gets kind of mixed up and lost. So, you know, in the PR respect, you know, how do you always stay on brand? I mean, I think visual drift, look, it's human nature, right? I mean, we're all wired that everybody, it seems like, why is everybody ADD now? When we were kids, was everybody ADD? You know, now they're talking about, oh, ADD in middle-aged adults, you know, and it's like, I mean, I don't remember ever being as ADD. And actually one of our team members who lives out of town's here working today in Dallas, and she said she just, by mistake, she was working on one screen, and she was that much more productive, because as opposed to having her 3 screens that you have windows open, you know, from all different things, which I'm totally guilty of, you know, she said I could focus on one thing. I got one thing on. And I think human nature is really driving this, and I think every brand is chasing human nature. And at a certain point, though, we need to establish who we are, so whatever the messaging is, at least people know it's coming from you. That doesn't mean that people won't scroll past you. You know, it's up to you to put something in there that's compelling. But at the same time, I think the visual drift, you know, what we're trying to do is keep the viewing public on knowing who our brand is. So, I mean, that's a thought there, you know.
Give me, if I suspect my brand is suffering visual drift, just give me 3 quick things that I might look at or fix right away.
Create a look and a feel that will live in the first 0.03 seconds on everything you post. and push that out across your whole organization. And that's just the law, for, January 2026 until 2028, that's our look, period. Whether we're talking about, offers or brand or public relations. And I think that will help a lot. That will create brand recognition, which is what we're all hoping. So we all remember whomever the gecko is when we figure out what company it is, but we all know it's a gecko.
Yeah. I really like that. And Stuart, what about the fact that, visually, a lot of the visuals are now AI generated? Do you think that's off-putting to people? Or do you think over time people won't be able to even tell the difference anyway, and it's just initial glitches? And you also have the ethics around AI. Should you put in that this is AI generated image, for instance? Where do you stand on those matters?
Breaking that down, I think the ethics are real. I do think in 20 seconds people will forget about the ethics. It's kind of like when Photoshop started, there was a whole movement to say any still photograph that's been altered by Photoshop needs to have some kind of, identifier on it. That lasted like 20 seconds. So I think the same thing's going to happen here. I think if you could tell it's AI, you might just blow it off, and maybe the brand missed because they used AI. I do feel like the melding of the technologies, one of the things we're really working on hard is how do we meld technologies to create real content and using AI to enhance it or embellish it whatever we see fit. So if you think about an advertiser, if you think about AI, the sky's the limit now. That you could do anything. So the deal is there a way to do it in an authentic storytelling fashion that AI disappears? You don't even think about it. Back to, I think we discussed, you think about Game of Thrones with a woman riding a dragon. I mean, we all believed it. We're watching a story, and it melded together perfectly. We couldn't tell it was AI. I mean, although somewhere back there, you knew that, and you put reality aside, but I think there's
I
a
don't
future.
want that in my political campaigns, though. I don't want fake crowds and stuff like that.
And you know what? That's, I think, the scariest thing. And we don't want it in journalism, in news, in journalism, or any of that stuff. And that's a totally different topic that I think we all feel the same way about. And I don't know how we're going to stop that. There was just something, last week, when that whole thing happened in Mexico with the burning jetliners, but that was never happening. Like the cartels were not lighting them on fire. So I don't know how the news will stay neutral. And I think that's something that's going to be really frightening for all of us, but that's a whole other thing.
Thank you. Thank you, Stuart. There's a lot for us to take in.
I know. I do feel like good stories, and it all comes back to good stories will prevail. Heartwarming stories, things that humans can connect with will always work.
Yeah, agreed. Lovely note to end on. Thank you.